Hello everyone, and welcome to another debunking of Ethan Klein's supposed Content Nuke. So at one point in his supposed Content Nuke, Ethan Klein attempts to justify the Israeli settler colonial state and its expulsion of Palestinians by glossing over the Nakba, and that basically the Arab world just randomly, crazily became full anti-Semitic, not reacting to anything in particular at all, and expelled and forced out and pogromed all of the Jews. And we're going to go over all of the examples that he uses here to justify this claim. So firstly, let's watch him gloss over the Nakba here.
To think that Jews as an ethnic minority in Israel would not be safe? After all, Israel is a country of refugees. If the Jews didn't come from...
It's so funny. Does he think he's a refugee or Hila Klein are a refugee? You guys aren't refugees. You make refugees. Palestinians are refugees because of you. Get it straight, okay?
From Europe after the Holocaust, they came from the surrounding Arab countries that expelled them in massive amounts following the 1948 war. In fact, there was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba.
So the Nakba for him was just a war, like this long-planned expulsion of Palestinians, which the Arab intervention was explicitly a reaction to. So how is it a nation of refugees when it declared its independence and its own dominion over land that it had taken from Palestinians, when these people weren't even there yet, obviously? And then watch this.
1 million Jews. All of these surrounding Arab countries had vibrant Jewish communities in huge number, hundreds of thousands. Now, if you look at them, you're looking at close to, if not literally, 0 Jews left in these countries. Just to give you an...
Now let's go over his examples of this, okay? Let's go over his justifications for this, and let's see how much this lines up with his narrative of expulsion.
Idea. Here's a visual representation of the Jewish refugees after 1948. Morocco had 265,000 Jews. Now it has 2,000.
Okay, so Morocco at this time was not self-ruling. It was still a French colonial possession. What happened in Morocco is that the Jewish Agency, which was one of the leading organizations advocating for forming a colonial state in Palestine and trying to further such ends, struck an agreement with the French governor of Morocco to force Moroccan Jews to immigrate. So what this was Israelis working in tandem with the French colonial power to force the Jews out of Morocco. Morocco did not expel them. Israel sent ships there specifically to pick these people up. Israel was an active participant in this expulsion. And the reason why they did this is obviously because it's to Israel's advantage. If Jews are forced out of other places, they want it to happen. That's why they actively participated in doing it here. Because a Jew elsewhere is not useful to Israel, but a Jew who moves to Israel is. His next example.
Algeria had 140,000. Now it has about 50.
Algeria. What happened in Algeria? Well, Algeria was also a French colony. And when the French colonized Algeria, they murdered about 3 to 4 million Algerian Muslims who were the majority population. And in an effort to divide and conquer, they attempted to divide the Jewish population of Algeria from the Muslim population of Algeria when they colonized it by passing something called the Crémeau Decree, which afforded French citizenship to all Jews in Algeria. This turned Algerian Jews into French citizens, and soon after this, they integrated into the French settler society, which was oppressing the Algerian Muslims and Christians. Thus, the French Jews became French, both culturally and by citizenship. And unfortunately, most of them decided to collaborate with the colonial power. Effectively, they were French at this point. Then, once Algeria won its independence from France, the French settlers and the French Jews were given an ultimatum. Either renounce their French citizenship or leave the country. This was not specifically aimed at Jews, it was for everyone. This was not specifically aimed at Jews, it was for all French. And almost all of the Jews chose to go to France. So this was not an expulsion. Nor did these people even go to Israel, they went to France. Again, French colonialism's fault, not the Algerians' fault, same as in Morocco. His next example is Iraq. Iraq is actually a country that very desperately tried to keep its Jews. Iraq even passed laws which forbid Jews from leaving for Israel, as you can see listed here in this article. But what happened? Well, Iraq was the target of pervasive terrorist attack by Zionist/Israeli agents in order to create a narrative there of Iraq being untenable for the continued presence of Jews. After a number of terrorist attacks, and the Israeli government lobbying the Iraqi government to allow Jews to leave, they rescinded the law that prevented Jews from leaving for Israel, which then resulted in mass migration of Iraqi Jews. So as you can clearly see, this is nowhere near as black and white as just people being expelled to Israel. The Zionists wanted the Jews to leave. They wanted them to leave by any means necessary, to the point they started bombing synagogues in order to create this sort of fear among the Jews there so that they would want to leave. And then they exerted government pressure, and then they exerted diplomatic pressure on the Iraqi government to that end as well.
Iraq had 150,000 Jews, now 10. And I want to give a special shout out to my boy over in Afghanistan, one known Jew. We know him, we love him.
So now he brings up Afghanistan. I think it's pretty clear that Ethan Klein doesn't actually know what the fuck is even going on here, because Afghanistan is not Arab. Afghanistan is in Central Asia. It's like Afghanistan is not Middle Eastern, it's not Arab, it's in Central Asia. They don't speak Arabic there. They're not Arab at all. Just because they're Muslim, he thinks they're Arab. Afghanistan did not expel anyone in reaction to the creation of Israel. Nothing like that happened. It was essentially neutral during the whole thing. No one there really cared about it. It was not a part of the coalition that responded to the Nakba by attacking Israel or anything like that. So this simply does not fit into your narrative here. It's outside of it. You citing it is incredibly stupid.
He's the one Afghan Jew.
They were forced to leave their homes, their lives, their property, and migrate to the only place in the world that would accept them, which was Israel. The irony of this whole situation is that after the 1948 war, when Israel won,
he keeps calling Israel expelling and genociding Palestinians to steal its country from them, just a war that they won
the war to declare its independence, the Arab countries got super anti-Semitic against their own Jewish citizenry that had nothing to do with Israel. And
that had nothing to do with Israel. I very much just showed you that a lot of it had a whole lot to do with Israel. Obviously, if you genocide an entire Arab population and do so while screaming, we're doing this for Jews, we're doing this for Jews, we're doing this for Jews, some people are going to take you at their word. But still, that's not even what happened in the majority of these cases, as I just went over. His Algeria example was just completely misconstrued. The Jews of Algeria, in their majority, went to France. And it had nothing to do with anti-Semitism, everything to do with, them not wanting to let the French colonizers keep living in their country after they kicked them out. Morocco, again, carried out by the French colonial occupiers with the enthusiastic collaboration and lobbying and pushing of the Israelis. Iraq, Zionist terrorists helped that process quite a bit, didn't they? And the Israeli government literally lobbied them for it to happen. Afghanistan, nothing to do with any of this. So he erases the Nakba and slyly tries to justify the Israeli settler colonization of Palestine by just calling a complete ethnic cleansing of as many Palestinians as they could get their hands on in order to steal their land. Nothing more than a war which Israel rightfully won. And then he tries to justify this land being colonized by saying that, well, the people who came were refugees, all of them were just randomly expelled, when in literally all of the examples that he chose, in only one of them was anyone actually even remotely expelled as a result of that, which was Iraq. And that was only after massive Zionist pressure, both diplomatic and literal terrorist attacks being carried out in synagogues. Ethan Klein is basically attempting to justify settler colonialism by reframing the colonizers who came there and stole Palestinian land and homes as victims themselves, which, I don't know, in his logic seems to justify it, which not only wouldn't justify it in the first place, but which also just isn't true. So yeah, just another one of Ethan Klein's many ridiculous lies. Oh, and apart from all of that, I'd just like to note as well, this is something very important that most people don't know. But in 1975, there was a joint declaration from the governments of Morocco, Yemen, Libya, Sudan, Iraq, and Egypt that any Jew who had left post-Israeli independence could return and have their property returned. So whatever wrong happened to them here, the countries in question were willing to right this wrong. But Israel wouldn't even let them take them up on this offer if they wanted, because the whole reason why Ethan Klein and other Zionists mention this talking point is not honestly. It's because they just use it to weaponize against the Palestinian right of return, because the Palestinians actually want to return to their homes. The Israelis don't. The Israelis live great. They don't need some grandpa's home in Iraq or whatever. They stole a Palestinian's house and land a long time ago. They're living large at the expense of the Palestinians. So them even bringing this up is total bullshit because, one, it was not simple expulsions, as Ethan Klein likes to claim, and obviously all other Zionists like to claim. Two, the countries in question have offered. They have invited these people back, while Israel has never done that for their Palestinian victims, has it? And they invited them back literally 50 years ago. 50 years ago. In many of these cases, that was only a few years after they left, 5-10 years after they left. The Palestinians have been exiled for 80 years by Israel. There's no comparison here. Israel has never made any such offer like this. In fact, Israel has never even acknowledged Palestinian ownership of a single single stolen plot of land or a house or anything like that. So yeah, there's no equivalence here regardless of how much Ethan Klein and other dishonest Zionists like himself want them to be. Just another one of Ethan Klein's disgusting lies in his pathetic content puke.